Have you ever wondered why some people can predict your reactions, make you feel guilty or subtly manipulate you, while you're just trying to be transparent? They play with silence, with gestures, with timing. And the hardest truth? Those who feel the most often see the least. The more empathetic you are, the more exposed you become to false readings. But why does this happen? The answer isn't just body language. It lies in the hidden psychology shaping your perception filters. You think you're reading someone's intentions, but most times, you're just projecting your own. Meanwhile, others, those who've mastered invisible social codes, are reading you like an open book. In this video, we'll reveal why you often feel misunderstood and why others seem to know exactly where to strike. We'll break the myths around emotional reading, empathy, and intuition. And we'll explore tools from modern psychology that may forever change how you connect with people. Sometimes you feel like you're always one step behind. You notice when their tone shifts, when silence feels heavier than 1,000 words. But you can't quite name what's wrong, and it eats at you. You try to decode, analyze, make sense of it, but nothing fits. In the end, you're left with that sinking feeling, I must have done something wrong. You remember conversations where you said all the right things, yet they withdrew. Or worse, where you opened up, showed vulnerability, and were met with coldness or judgment. You replay every word, every look, trying to find the mistake. But no one gives answers. And deep down, the fear of being misunderstood grows stronger than the desire to try again. It's exhausting, trying so hard to understand others while they seem to understand and hurt you so effortlessly, as if they see things in you that you can't even see in yourself, as if they know exactly where to touch to throw you off balance. And you, with all your empathy, feel lost. You read too much into what doesn't matter, and not enough where it truly does. Maybe you've asked yourself, why do I feel so deeply and understand so little? Why, even with my sensitivity, do I misplace my trust so often? The answer lies in the invisible layers shaping human connection. Layers you'll start seeing from now on. Because understanding others begins with understanding yourself, and that's where we're headed. You wonder why you feel so much. Why simple words cut so deep. Why subtle gestures, ignored by everyone else, spin in your mind for hours. You try to shut it off, but your brain won't stop. It keeps processing, dissecting, looping, even when the rest of the world has gone to sleep. A sense of quiet isolation settles in, not physical but emotional. You can be surrounded by people, smiling, talking, functioning, and still feel alone. Not because you lack company, but because you lack connection, real connection. The kind that goes beyond the surface, where you don't need a mask, where you're safe to just be without fear of not fitting in. Then the doubt creeps in. Am I the problem? Do I overthink? Feel too much? Expect too much? Meanwhile, the world keeps spinning effortlessly, ignoring the emotional cliffs you see in every detail. It's like living in a parallel reality, where your pain is invisible and your questions echo with no reply. You want to connect, to trust, to love with presence, with truth, with depth. But every time you try, something freezes. Sometimes it's the fear of rejection. Other times it's the doubt. Is the other person truly being real with me? Trapped between your desire to dive in and your fear of drowning, you stay still, and silently the conflict grows. How many times have you heard, "Don't overthink it. You need to lighten up, just be more social. You just have to trust people more." These lines sound like advice, but they're shortcuts. Ways to avoid the depth of your experience. They don't embrace you. They minimize you, as if feeling deeply were a flaw to be corrected. We live in a culture that celebrates shallow charm, unfiltered spontaneity, and quick but hollow connections. Overthinking is seen as insecurity. Feeling too much is labeled weakness. Noticing the in-betweens, silences, glances, energy shifts, is called being dramatic. But what if that's not drama? What if it's refined sensitivity? We were taught to trust what's visible. what was said, the smile shown, the polite gesture. But no one taught us to read what's hidden, the emptiness in spoken words, the discomfort behind the smile, the social performance masking emotional truth. And once you start noticing the cracks in that everyday theater, the world begins to feel artificial. Maybe the real problem isn't that you feel too much, but that the world feels too little. A world that fears emotional honesty and prefers pretense over authenticity. You're not strange for wanting to truly understand people. What's strange is a system that tells you to ignore what you see so clearly. That's why your intuition always feels at war with what others say is normal. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." That truth hits hard when we struggle to understand others and to be understood. Jung believed that what we project onto the world is often what we deny in ourselves. That's why some people seem impossible to read. They don't know themselves. They're unfamiliar with their own shadows, desires, contradictions. How can they see others clearly when they remain a mystery to themselves? Daniel Goleman, author of Emotional Intelligence, agrees, real empathy begins with self-awareness. It's not just about sensing emotion, it's about recognizing and naming it. Psychologist Brené Brown reminds us, vulnerability isn't weakness, it's emotional courage. Yet most people avoid being vulnerable. They build social armor to seem strong, confident, normal. And that's where the reading game becomes unfair. We're surrounded by performers who've mastered hiding their fear, pain, and insecurity behind a flawless act. Psychiatrist Thomas Lewis, in A General Theory of Love, argues that humans are emotional regulators for each other. In other words, what you feel from someone is often more truthful than what they say. Real communication happens through presence, energy, gaze, not just words. That's why deeply sensitive people often detect what's behind the act and are called too much for it. These thinkers help us understand why we often feel out of place in a world that rewards appearances but avoids depth. They show us that the ability to feel deeply, notice the subtle, and challenge surface-level behavior isn't a weakness. It's intelligence, emotional, intuitive, relational. Rare, yes, often lonely, but absolutely essential in a numb society. To bring this closer, let's meet Louisa. She was always described as too kind. Intuitive, sensitive, and attentive to others, she could sense when someone was struggling, despite the smile on their face. But while Louisa saw people deeply, she felt almost no one truly saw her in return. In college, she made friends easily, but the bonds were shallow. People came to her for comfort, for advice, for a listening ear. She heard it all, fears, secrets, pain. But when she tried opening up herself, silence followed. People changed the subject, said she overthought things or just disappeared. Slowly, Louisa stopped speaking. She kept everything inside, and the silence grew. The same pattern followed her into work, relationships, even family. She couldn't understand why others connected so easily, while she seemed stuck in a deeper, heavier layer of reality. Eventually, she began to believe something was wrong with her, that maybe she really was too intense, but something deep inside her resisted, a quiet compass pointing to a truth she hadn't yet named. The turning point came during a therapy session. For the first time, she heard the term intuitive empathy. Her therapist explained that some people have an expanded sensitivity, like an antenna tuned to emotional frequencies others miss. It may feel isolating, but it's not a flaw, it's a gift. That day, Louisa cried, not from weakness, but from finally feeling seen. From that moment on, Louisa began to see herself differently. Not as too fragile, but as strong, for feeling so much and still standing. She started seeking deeper connections, ones where she could be seen, not just used as an emotional mirror. Of course, that journey has its price. because the path of the deeply feeling is rarely easy, and that's what we'll explore next. There is a kind of exhaustion no sleep can fix, an invisible weight you carry even when everything seems normal. It's not laziness, it's not drama. It's the burnout of feeling too much, of noticing what no one says, of picking up on details others overlook. You walk into a room and feel the tension before anyone speaks. You sense the silence, the shift, the unspoken, and it drains you. Most people move through life on autopilot. They don't realize what they carry or what they project onto others. But you, without asking, become an emotional sponge. You absorb frustration, fear, hidden anger, and later you wonder why you feel so drained. Until you realize you've been carrying emotions that aren't even yours. And when you try to explain, they say, "You're just too sensitive, stop overthinking." But that dismissal hurts more than the weight itself, because it isolates you, makes you question, am I exaggerating? Am I the problem? The loneliness of being misunderstood isn't about being alone. It's about not being able to show your full self for fear of being dismissed again. But inside that silence, there's something sacred, the seed of your transformation, because only those who dive that deep can rise with something real in their hands. There is meaning hidden in the pain of the sensitive, and that's what we'll uncover next. You've spent a lifetime feeling too much, noticing what others missed, carrying pain that wasn't always yours, and for a long time that felt like a burden. But what if I told you that what you call weight is actually a raw gift, not a mystical power, but a rare capacity to see the invisible, hear the unspoken, and understand where others only judge. The shift begins when you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What can I build from what I feel?" Yes, your pain shaped you, but not to break you. It refined you. Every time you sensed discomfort in a silent room, every time you felt sadness behind a fake smile, you developed a rare skill, conscious empathy. And that skill can be used to heal, to lead, to guide, starting with yourself. The turning point comes when you realize you no longer have to shrink to fit spaces that belittle you. Your sensitivity doesn't need justification, it needs direction. Your deep gaze isn't a curse, it's a compass. The pain gave you language, perspective, depth. It was an initiation. And now the invitation is simple. Stop hiding. Start choosing where and with whom you'll invest this gift. This isn't about becoming a hero or a guru. It's about presence, about consistency, about letting your gaze no longer be a silent burden, but a light that transforms. The same depth that once isolated you is now what reconnects you. Because once you understand yourself, you begin to see others, not as they pretend to be, but as they truly are. And in a world of masks, that is real power. You don't need to shapeshift to belong where you don't fit. The world doesn't need more copies. It needs you, as you are, with all your intensity, your doubts, your depth. Beneath your silence lies a wisdom shaped by everything you've felt and faced. It's time to honor that. Your true power isn't in being like others, but in becoming radically yourself. It's not about convincing the world who you are. It's about reminding yourself every day that your truth deserves space, that your sensitive perception isn't a flaw. It's a rare lens into what actually matters. You came into this world with something unique. It doesn't have to be grand in the eyes of everyone. It just has to be real to you. Maybe it's the way you listen, the way you comfort, the way you understand. Maybe it's how you turn what's invisible into meaning. Your purpose isn't hidden in something far away. It's in the way you feel and respond, even when no one's watching. So don't silence yourself. Don't shrink. When you honor who you are, you give others permission to do the same. When you express yourself with truth, even in quiet ways, you become a lighthouse for those still lost in the fog. The world is starving for authenticity, and your existence, just as it is, might be the beginning of something bigger. You've spent your whole life trying to read others, their expressions, their intentions, their silences. But what about you? When was the last time you truly read yourself? When you listened to your own intuition, your limits, your needs? The truth is, understanding others begins with the courage to understand yourself. The world taught you to observe, but never taught you how to recognize yourself. Now that you know, what will you do with it? Will you keep trying to please others just to be accepted? Will you keep silencing yourself just to avoid discomfort? Or will you finally choose to be whole, even if that unsettles those who fear depth? You already have everything you need to become the person you've been searching for in others. Maybe you've been reading signs out there, when the answer has always lived within. The ability to see clearly isn't some magical gift. It's a muscle that grows when you stop running from yourself. When you allow yourself to feel, to understand, to take a stand. From now on, the invitation is simple but powerful. Look at yourself with the same attention you give to others. Question your interpretations. Notice what hurts. Feel what moves you. This won't make you less sensitive. It will make you whole. And when you become whole, the world comes into focus. People do too. So tell me, can you read yourself clearly? What's keeping you from trusting what you feel? What part of you needs to be heard today? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be the bridge someone else needs to find their way. Here, your voice matters, and it may echo more than you know. If this video spoke to you, subscribe and turn on notifications. Here we go deep, with courage, truth, and emotional depth. If you felt like this kind of conversation has been missing in your life, welcome. Here, you'll always be read with the heart.